Donald Trump. It's a name and headline rolled into one. What's he done this time? Trump has just openly trashed America's most important alliance, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO has a lot of rules and obligations, but the most important one is this: an attack on one is an attack on all. I'll give you an example. Assume Russia launched an attack on Germany. Now, Germany is a NATO member, so the attack on Germany will be considered an attack on all 31 NATO members, meaning all of them will respond. It won't be Germany versus Russia. It will be NATO versus Russia. That commitment is the bedrock of this alliance. That's why Finland joined last year, why Sweden is joining this year, why Ukraine refused to be neutral. They all want the NATO security cover. But Donald Trump doesn't care about it. This weekend, he was campaigning in South Carolina, and he narrated his conversation with a NATO member. Listen to this.
Well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
What does that mean? It means Donald Trump won't protect a NATO member if they're attacked, not unless the country pays the bills. And which bill is that? Well, NATO members have an unofficial military spending target. 2% of their GDP. That's what they must spend on defense, 2% of their GDP. But many NATO members don't hit that target. So Donald Trump says he won't defend them. In fact, he goes a step ahead. He says he will encourage others to attack them. Again, let's talk examples. In fact, the same example works still. Germany. Germany did not spend 2% of its GDP on defense in 2023. So Trump would encourage an attack on Germany. At least that's what he claims. Now, European officials are in shock after listening to Trump. Even top ally Britain is concerned.
Let's be serious. NATO cannot be a la carte military alliance. Cannot be a military alliance that works depending on the humor of the President of the US on those days.
In this world where we've seen Putin's terrible illegal invasion of Ukraine. And actually NATO this year has got stronger with Sweden and Finland joining. Of course we want all countries like us to spend 2%, but I think what was said was not a sensible approach.
The White House has called the comments appalling. The NATO chief has also criticized them. But coming from Donald Trump, it's important. This is a man leading the US presidential race. He could be president by this time next year. So what he says is important, no matter how outlandish it may sound. So let's focus on two obvious questions. Number one, can you really not defend a NATO member? And two, if the US walks away, what can Europe do? Let's look at Article 5 of NATO. That's the article dealing with collective defense, and this is what it says. If an armed attack occurs, each of the members will assist the party or parties so attacked by taking such action as it deems necessary, including the use of armed force. So a military response is not necessary. Trump may decide that financial support is enough, or maybe just political support. And some NATO members already do this. Iceland, for example. Iceland does not have an armed force. So technically, Iceland cannot defend a fellow NATO member. No reason Donald Trump can't do the same if he becomes president. Of course, the fallout would be huge. European allies will likely tear into the Americans. They will also be humiliated and shamed. Now to the second question. How can Europe prepare for this? Frankly, it's a question their leaders should consider. It's easy to condemn Trump and move on. But the fact is, he represents a big chunk of US voters. This is how a lot of Americans think. What if they're fed up of defending Europe, of being the hammer of NATO? So it's a wake-up call for European nations. They can't blindly depend on the US for security. They must look out for themselves. And that's what Estonia is calling for.
So I think it still is the plea for everybody to do more. And I think what the presidential candidate in America says is also something to maybe wake up some of the allies who haven't done that much. So hopefully we all do more, and collectively we are stronger together.
The numbers support this. The EU's defense spending is around $260 billion. That's 27 countries in total. And how much does the US spend? $877 billion. Of course, the US is a much bigger economy. It's also a self-proclaimed superpower, so their requirements are different from Europe's. Having said that, the sentiment is shifting. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is changing things. Europe is now more worried about its safety. 6 EU countries increased their defense spending by 10%. Sweden increased by 30%. So the direction is upwards. Does that mean Donald Trump is right? I'm afraid it's not that simple. Yes, America spends more, but that money also gives the US influence, a lot more influence than any other country. If the money goes, so will the influence, which is why Donald Trump will find it hard to walk the talk. He tried NATO skepticism in his first term as well, but eventually he had to back down. Expect the same with this rhetoric.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.